Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. I'm really glad to be joined today by Filip Aronshtein. He is co-founder and CEO at Dirac. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat, excited to dive in.
Very glad to have you here. This is some pretty cool stuff and very kind of important topic these days with getting more and more digital in the manufacturing world. So before we jump into what Dirac does, why don't you just talk about yourself, where you came from and how you got doing what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So my background is originally in electrical engineering and robotics. Got my start over at Northrop Grumman. Got TS clearance, worked on some pretty cool radar stuff over there. When they ran out of electrical engineering work to give me, gave me some mechanical engineering work. And when they ran out of mechie work to give me some technician work. So did a little bit of assembly, a little bit of test. And that's where I got to see kind of how unfortunately archaic a lot of the infrastructure was on the manufacturing side of things. To me, it seemed like a pretty advanced company on the engineering side of things. And I guess I wanted to do something about it. I was starting to get the feeling that the West was starting to forget how to build great things. And I want to make sure that didn't happen. So I got my best friend from college and now my co-founder and CTO, Peter, and we set out to go build Dirac.
Very cool. Now, give us, first of all, kind of the 10,000 foot level view of what Dirac does.
Absolutely. So when I jump in, when I'm first talking to somebody about what we're doing, the easy, quick pitch is, we automatically generate assembly instructions for manufacturers. A little bit of the history of this problem that we're solving. We built out what we call the first automated work instruction platform. A little bit of the history around that is until basically until the 1970s, the early 1970s, engineers and manufacturers were connected by one thing, and that was the blueprint, right? Canonical, cyanotype blueprint that we all know and love that you imagine in your head when you say blueprint. And then in like the late 70s, early 80s, CAD software emerged and became ubiquitous. And so all the mechanical engineers who were living on the shop floor, pretty well integrated into production, actually knew how things fit together in the real world. All those guys went from being like generally blue collar, white collar, like sort of straddling in the middle. And they went full white collar, started living, basically behind 2D screens, moved to the back office. And from there, basically started designing systems 5,000 miles away from where those things are actually built. And so what ended up happening was what we call the fracturing of the blueprint. Unfortunately, basically since then, mechanical design, for the most part, it's been pretty heavily divorced from reality. We like to say that the blueprint was fractured into two parts: CAD software on the design side, and these things called work instructions on the build side. And when I talk to folks about, what's gone on in the past 50 years since CAD software emerged, I like to talk about how for the past 50 years, CAD software has gotten all the upgrades, super advanced software, and on the manufacturing side for work instructions, nothing, right? Folks today are still using PowerPoint and Word docs for making their work instructions. And to explain what a work instruction is at the high level, I like to talk to folks about IKEA, right, or Lego. So imagine the paper instruction book that tells you how to actually build a thing for an operator or technician. That is, that you would use like for IKEA furniture. Let's say that paper instruction book. Everything around us was also assembled by someone, the same way IKEA furniture gets assembled. But those folks, operators and technicians in manufacturing facilities, also need assembly instructions. And so work instructions are these ridiculously long, very, very high level, often not, very frequently not enough detail in these documents, like several 100-page PowerPoints or Word documents that are put together over the course of weeks or months. Very frequently, they're out of date. Very frequently, it's just text and bullet points, not even pictures half the time. And so that is what we're bringing the 21st century upgrade to, basically. So rather than this process of a manufacturing engineer, who's the folks that we work with, rather than them getting a CAD file over email, pulling it apart, figuring out the assembly ordering, like very, very manually, taking hundreds of screenshots and then throwing all those screenshots into like a several 100-page PowerPoint or Word doc over the course of weeks or months. We basically allow somebody to upload their CAD file to our software, and we'll generate like most of the work instruction for them in this 3D animated environment.
So let's dive in a little deeper on that. So, yeah, I get the concept of all
Mhm.
that detail at the design level and
Yeah.
how that's certainly not going to translate into anything meaningful for the person who's, say, assembling a
Mhm.
piece of equipment on the floor. How does it then translate? What are you doing to make it where now that's something that's a better enabler for that floor technician?
Right, absolutely. So today, what we basically allow for is we'll take their CAD file, we'll run an assembly physics simulation, and it will pull apart the assembly. It'll figure out the assembly sequence automatically, and then automatically generate 3D animations for each step of the assembly process. And then we'll basically there's two different sides to the software, right? There's the drafting side for making the instructions, but there's also the operator viewer that we have as well. And because the software is browser based, you can open it up on anything with a screen and an internet connection. So that means phones, tablets, a laptop, anything you got. It actually works really well on a phone. So you don't necessarily have to get like a Traveler or an iPad or anything. But that for us has enabled operators and technicians on shop floors to get the value that like a mechanical engineer might have from the like having the 3D model. We actually transmit that value to an operator who very frequently they're only given like a piece of paper or maybe some photos. So makes it a lot. We like to say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but an animation is worth a million, right? Giving an operator the ability to rotate the model around, see how something's coming together in real time, drops error rates, but also like it radically improves quality of life for the guys actually doing the work on the shop floor. You know, they're not getting confused. They don't have to ask a billion questions. And this is for us, it's really really important that we're not just making some fancy schmancy engineering tool, whatever that C-suite might buy and then push down like top down. We have a tool that we built out that radically improves quality of life for the guys doing the work, and that's like a huge priority for us, right? That's making manufacturing engineers qualities of life a lot better, making operators qualities of life a lot better, and we've heard anecdotes about that. So it's been really great.
So I had a look at your website, and I mean, it looks phenomenal. I can certainly see how it's going to be meaningful for that
Mhm.
person who's doing the hard work on the floor.
Right.
I did see references to model-based work instructions. So let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So for a while, kind of like what I was talking about, how engineering, like on the design side, has gotten a lot of the like CAD upgrades. When we say model based, we basically mean the CAD model. And so historically, a lot of drawings are 2D. A lot of the things that people are executing on are 2D. When we say model based instructions, we mean like really actually like 3D interactive like work instructions. An
Right.
operator in our software gets the ability to like rotate the model around, interact with it, drag the model around, and actually interrogate it, hide parts, see if they can basically make some of the parts transparent, like highlight a couple parts, basically interact with the CAD model the same way the folks on the design side do. It's sort of like for past, I would say like maybe 20, 30 years, there's this whole paradigm of like model-based systems engineering or model-based design that a lot of folks, especially on the defense side, it's been a really big thing. So
Mhm.
like for defense contracts, there are like requirements that you have to have CAD files on the design side. And a lot of what we're pushing for is sort of this new paradigm of like finally closing the loop and pushing for like model-based manufacturing, like having the CAD model as the single source of truth, not really letting it sort of like stray too much from the design side, sort of like keeping everything like sort of unified on that one single source of truth.
Yeah, and I saw that on your website. Um, there's a valve that you show there, and then as
Yep.
well a pump assembly, both
Mhm.
very cool. And yeah, you can see how immediately it's got that picture in someone's head of how things go together, of what it's supposed to look like, where the parts are when they're done properly. So,
Mhm.
folks, definitely go check out the website. I've got a link in the show description for that. And it's very cool stuff. And so, obviously, you're helping enable the folks who are on the floor today, who, in a lot of cases now, um, unlike the past, may have no background in
Mhm.
putting things together and doing home projects, even working on their cars like almost everyone did in the past. Is that part of what drives you? Is there's the new generation that may not have that experience, but they're obviously very digitally adept. And you
Yeah.
know, you're talking about
Yeah.
having something on a phone. That's a pretty good place to have it for today's worker, right?
Right, like 100%. Right. So
Yeah.
for us, we're seeing that over the next like 5, 10, 15 years, a lot of folks are going to be retiring, and we are just, as a country, unfortunately, we're just not training folks up in the way that we used to. Like we used to have like guilds, right? Guilds would make sure that like the next generation were trained up. But for some reason, somewhere along the line, the past like 15, 15, 20 years, we kind of dropped the ball a little bit. And so the average like skill level of somebody going into manufacturing nowadays is just lower on average, right? Kind of exactly what you said. We started outsourcing stuff, unfortunately, just a really, really horrible outsourcing and hollowing out of our production base. And so because of that, the average, it's also like a mix of like the average man in the US just like doesn't, isn't as handy as it used to be, just in general, which is also unfortunate. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is like, we really care about making sure that like Gen Z and like the next generation of folks entering the workforce aren't just, enabled to actually be successful and have tools that can make them successful, but also get excited about going into manufacturing, right? For like 30 years, everybody said, go to college, get a degree, go to Wall Street, go, I don't know, be some accountant or something. And people like really, grabbed all over like blue collar jobs. And that's awful, right? It's really, really awful. And so a big thing that we're trying to push for is get young folks excited about being the next generation of manufacturers. And so part of our whole push, part of the whole culture that we're trying to push is building really, really cool tools for that next generation.
Yeah, and you're so preaching to the choir. Those are points that we've made here on the show a number of times. I call it the triple whammy when it comes to the workforce. We've got the baby boomers already in the retirement stage.
Right.
We seem to have been kind of caught off guard by that, like they were never going to retire. And so we've got these huge numbers of people exiting. We kind of also missed that was the biggest generation in recent times, or if ever. And like you very correctly pointed out, we have totally been crapping on the manufacturing, on the trade jobs for a couple generations now, certainly since I came out of college. And then, so you've got the lack of desire for young people to go into these jobs. And then we've whittled back on shop classes. We don't have the home projects. We don't have cars people can work on anymore. So we don't have the skills either. And so I love what you're talking about around making it exciting, and looking at your website again. That's exactly the kind of thing we've got going for us. Is the manufacturing world has changed, hasn't it? It's not the dark, dirty, dingy, dangerous world of your grandfather. It's high tech and clean and
but
very, very solid future.
But it's also, it's not even just about that though. Like it is clean, it is safer, but it's about making manufacturing cool again. Like that's the thing. Like it's like we don't have. I'm
going to jump in and correct you. I don't think manufacturing has ever not been cool.
Yes,
we just haven't communicated it.
Yes, we as like a country did like sort of like let it fall out of fashion. And so like I mean like the popular media, like we got Top Gun, right? We don't have a Top Gun for manufacturing, right? We need things like that. And so myself, a couple of my buddies, other guys who run early stage companies that are sort of burgeoning and coming up. There's this whole new cultural movement around getting folks excited about manufacturing again. And so that's a big thing for me. Also, like generationally, right? You're pointing it out, right? The baby boomers are retiring. My whole perspective, the millennials they're lost. They're far gone. It's over for the millennials. We'll skip them. Gen Z though, Gen Z's coming up. Gen Z actually can be the saving generation, and Gen Alpha too, right? Gen Alpha's not too far gone. They don't have TikTok brain too much yet. We can still save them, but millennials, it's kind of over for those guys.
Well, are they though? I mean, part of the problem is that they were probably the most victimized by what we're talking about now. Certainly they've been in their jobs for a while now and might be a little kind of accustomed to what they're doing, but at the same time, midlife pivots also become back in fashion here.
Great point. Great point.
If we start showing that we have Gen Zers talking about how cool it is, and the millennials are wanting to still stay with it.
Look, somebody's got to crunch the numbers, right? We'll hit the floor. We'll build some cool stuff. Somebody's got to stay and work on Excel, right?
Well, that's true.
They'll have fun. They'll be fine.
We'll catch some of the millennials. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
the ones who don't look too emaciated and chicken arms and stuff.
You're gonna have all kinds of comments from the millennials on the comment section of the show.
I know
Which
it's
is
true.
good. Put your comments in there, challenge it. If you're a millennial and you want to join up with what's cool now, it's
You got to be a little inflammatory, right? You got to be a little inflammatory to get people to pay attention. So
Absolutely. Okay, so back to the good news, though. You guys had a couple of big announcements lately. One just this week is the funding announcement. So why don't you tell us a little about that?
yeah, absolutely. So we are extraordinarily blessed. We're very, very fortunate to have a new fundraising round come through. We raised a price seed round. It's called by Founders Fund and Coatue. They are awesome, incredible funds. We're working with a guy named Trey Stevens on the Founders Fund side. And on the Coatue side, it's folks, Vibor Khanna, Sri Viswanath, Thomas LaFont, awesome folks. Very, very pro-American manufacturing on all sides. That's sort of a requirement to work with us. You have to care about saving the West and upgrading our industrial base. Trey, as an example, he's the chairman of this company called Anduril. They're sort of like a next-gen burgeoning defense prime. And so that, super exciting company in general. So, very, very fortunate we get to work with Trey, very fortunate we get to work with Coatue folks. Very excited that they have, that we have their, support, their backing. And so that's been a great time. And then the additional announcement that we did at the same time is actually a partnership with a company called Siemens. If anybody doesn't know, Siemens is an industrial powerhouse. They have a bunch of manufacturing sort of all over the world, but also they are like one of the main manufacturing software companies, like engineering and manufacturing software companies. So Siemens has these two pieces of software that are critical, and basically, effectively, any real enterprise at scale has this PLM software called Teamcenter. Teamcenter is basically this the software that people use for revision control of designs. So they'll like check in and check out different versions of a CAD file on the design side, and their CAD software NX. So these are super, super popular. We're very fortunate to partner with Siemens. Siemens is we're a technology partner of Siemens. They've been bringing us into some of their customer engagements. That's been super exciting. And so they've enabled us to scale pretty aggressively. And so the partnership is not just a sales-oriented partnership where they'll walk us into exciting customer engagements with automotive giants. I can't say specifically who, but there's some really exciting customers they're bringing us into. But also we built sort of like this first-class integration with Teamcenter. And so the way that NX works with Teamcenter is, it pushes and pulls different revisions of CAD files. We want to, and we basically do with Teamcenter, we pull a CAD file from Teamcenter and then can push back like a work instruction and push back a bunch of like EBOM, MBOM, like BOP information back to Teamcenter, along with basically a restructured CAD file, because we actually allow folks to restructure their CAD file on our software. So that's like for those on the engineering manufacturing side, a lot of folks talk about traceability. That is like a key critical workflow that if we were not able to integrate with Teamcenter, we would not be able to work with the largest enterprises in the world. And so having Siemens first class support, and actually really give us the gold star stamp of approval to build that integration, and then also having them bring us into these really exciting customers has meant a lot for us as a company. So very, very glad we get to work with them. They're a great company.
Well, I mean, talk about a phenomenal double whammy around getting the fresh infusion of cash to fund your growth and your expansion, while at the same time partnering up with, like you said, one of the giants in industry. I mean, I've spent 38 years now in manufacturing, and I've had the Siemens guys on my show in various capacities, written about Siemens for Forbes, and I saw that and thought, holy cow, these guys better saddle up, because you get hooked up with someone like that, and sky's the limit, right?
It's true. And what's cool about our relationship with them is, we're not super close with them, but Roland Bush knows about us. We're sort of on his radar. Yep. We've done a favor or two for him. He's a great guy. And more broadly, it's not just that we're partnered with Siemens on the software side. Their manufacturing facilities are also customers and users of our software. Yep. We're live at one of their facilities in Germany. We're expanding really quickly into their other facilities. So Siemens is we like them a lot. They're a really great team to work with. Yeah.
And you should. What kinds of applications are kind of the standout early winners for you?
Ooh, in terms of like vertical or in terms of
Yeah, I'm thinking vertical. Yep.
yeah, so we're very fortunate that it turns out if something's got parts and they fit together, like that is a customer. So we're generally been pretty vertical agnostic. So we work with folks in aerospace and defense, automotive, ag and construction machinery, maritime, folks who are just doing like complex industrial machinery in general. And
Mhm.
so we found that like we sort of like section not by vertical, but the way that we think about like our customer base, we actually break it up by whether they're an OEM. I have this like 2x2 in my head and sort of like paste
Yep.
it all over the office. We break it in on one axis, it's tier 1 through 3 supplier and OEM, and then on the other axis, it's mid market versus enterprise. And so we like for example, like our tier 1 through 3 like mid market sort of subsegment. We work with a lot of folks who make like pumps and valves. So like complex mechanical subassemblies, pumps, valves, heat exchangers, cooling systems. Those are awesome, but also there's some really, really exciting and aggressive applications in like ag equipment, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's like people using our stuff for like harvesting equipment. We have a really exciting company that we work with called Spudnik. They're based in Blackfoot, Idaho. We actually just released a really awesome case study with them where we actually not only, typically our value prop that we offer folks is like, we'll help them draft work instructions 95% faster. And that's like measured. We see it all over the place. A value prop that we didn't expect that we actually found in our case study with Spudnik was actually we reduced their build time by 33%. So we took the case study basically was they had a operator on the floor who'd been there for 15, 20 years, knew the build inside and out for a really, really complex harvester. He was the only person at the facility who knew how to make this thing. And
Yep.
so what ended up happening was we wanted to see like, can we train up new folks who just joined the team on like building the system? And so we made a work instruction for it. And then we saw that like not only were we able to have those folks assemble it really quickly, we actually like without having any errors, without running into any issues, they were able to do it 33% faster, like the new folks with our instructions. So that was pretty crazy. So we can actually help folks get products to market faster. We can help their build times come down, reduce error rates, all that great stuff. But that was a bit unexpected. You assume an instruction is an instruction, but in fact, we actually can help folks, especially like larger OEMs that have like significantly more complex systems. We're basically enabling them to do things that like they never thought possible, which is like make a work instruction with one person for an entire like 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 part assembly. So that's been it's been really exciting.
There's another concept that's come up here on the show a few times previously. It's called tacit knowledge.
Yep.
Essentially,
I said true knowledge,
familiar with
but
it?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, having that 3D
Oh, yeah.
model is actually conveying information you can't effectively capture in text.
100%. So there's actually this interesting thing. We very much call the software generally like an 80-20 tool. We say it's 80% automated, 20% manual, because it's really, really tough to like 100% automate the thing. And frankly, like we didn't want to 100% automate it. With the 20% that's manual, we basically say is a manufacturing engineer adding basically like any standard notes or media or tools. And because we have this really neat like geometry recognition infrastructure under the hood, we can basically automatically associate those little bits of rules of thumb or tribal knowledge with specific components. So if I added like a torque spec to a bolt, I never have to add that again. And we just recognize that part. We've associated to whenever you upload another assembly or whatever you see that bolt ever again on your team, whether it's you uploading or it's like somebody else in your team, we'll automatically pull in that torque spec. And that works with like standard notes of like little bits of rules of thumb too. So a lot of the software is not just automated work instructions. A huge point of it is also to retain and basically distribute tribal knowledge.
Absolutely. Which goes back to that workforce challenge piece. We talked about the effectiveness of training new people, but that's the other piece of it is you got those baby boomers who are going out the door. And if you let them go out the door with all the stuff in their heads untapped, boy, are you a big loser.
Oh yeah. There's you're no longer remembering how to build your thing.
Exactly.
We've seen it happen over and over again. Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah. So having an effective way to capture that is just phenomenal.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We're fortunate to get to work on a problem that matters.
For sure. Yep. Okay. So then let's talk about what are your biggest challenges right now?
Ooh, we are aggressively hiring. Like it's actually really cool. We had so our team we're a small team, right? Our customers are telling us that we're punching way above our weight, which is kind of cool. We were about a week ago. We were forward deployed on site with a customer for 2 weeks. We were doing a custom integration, basically integrating our software with their internal MES, and that we spent 2 weeks doing it. It was a hit, and something that they were basically saying was like, "Wow, we thought you guys were like 400, 500 person company. We're really, really impressed. They're surprised that like you're only like 200 or 300 people. What actually we're literally 16 people." So, it was really funny. For this deployment, we had to take, we had to basically take a couple of engineers and like fly them out with me, and we basically on site for 2 weeks. And it was kind of funny. We're thinking, okay, great, we're here, we're doing this, we're executing. And I think, wait a second, we just let half of our engineering team. We have 8 engineers on the team. So, Q3 roadmap stuff got blown up, and so we're thinking, oh boy, we aggressively need to hire some more hands-on keyboards. Yeah. And so, that's a really big thing about our company in general, by the way, culturally, is everyone on the team comes from a hardware background and pivoted their careers into software. So we're very, very big on that. It's very, very critical. It's core to the cultural alignment. It's core to making sure that everybody gets why what we're working on matters. So basically everybody in the team comes from like a mechanical engineer or manufacturing engineer background. So I'll give you an example, like, myself and my co-founder, Peter, both being electrical engineers, but, employee number 1 on our team was a manufacturing engineer for 4 or 5 years over at Boeing. And then he taught himself how to code, pivoted his career into software. Guy who runs product on our team, he was a manufacturing engineer. He worked at this company called Hubble Power Systems, over in Alabama, worked on switchgear and transformers. And then he was a manufacturing engineer there. Then he was a senior nuclear engineer over at General Dynamics Electric Boat for like 7-8 years over in Groton. And then taught himself the code, pivoted his career into software. So very, very critical that everybody comes from hardware backgrounds to fit really well with our team, be super high agency, be super high autonomy, drive to win, because that's what matters. And so we're aggressively hiring. Everybody's doing interviews. We're interviewing a ton. And it's tough to find folks with that sort of background. And so I would say biggest thing that we're struggling with right now is, well, I would say struggling with, but I would say biggest thing on our place right now is we need to grow the team really aggressively, really quickly. And so I would say we're very blessed and fortunate to have that problem. It's a very good problem.
Well, so, and if you're out there in the audience liking what you're hearing and you have that kind of background, get on their website and get an application in, right?
Yep. contact@diracking.com. Shoot me an email. We will talk.
Beautiful. So if you're thinking like the next 3 to 5 years, what are the big opportunities for Dirac?
Ooh, that's a great question. So for us, like, we're working on work instructions right now as this like point solution, but that's not the end all be all. We think that more broadly speaking, we want to get into like other more context aware applications, kind of the way we put it. In order to build a solution for folks, you really need to deeply understand not only like the workflows, but their problems. Like, you have to come from that background. You have to really get it. And so we're building very, very specifically like context aware applications. First one being for work instructions. But a lot of you ever hear that adage, like 3 blind men and an elephant?
Oh yeah.
So for the audience, I'll repeat it, just so you know. 3 blind men surrounding an elephant. First blind man feels the trunk, says, "Oh, it must be a snake." Second blind man feels the leg, says, "Oh, it must be a tree." Third feels the tail, said, "Oh, it must be a piece of string." But really, they're all feeling an elephant. And we actually look at the factory, the manufacturing facility, as the factory is the elephant, right? Everybody at a manufacturing facility has one piece of context that is basically one piece of data, one node in a graph of a very, very, very deeply interconnected graph, effectively. And so we basically want to take all these different, like every piece of information in this very deeply interconnected graph, draw a box around it and say, okay, that box of nodes in this graph, that's the work instruction. We'll put that in front of the manufacturing engineer. There are other people in the manufacturing facility who have different pieces of context, who have different pieces of information, who might benefit from things that the manufacturing engineer might see, and who could also input information that might benefit the manufacturing engineer. And so these are things that we'll get into tools for industrial engineers, a tool for DFM, automated maintenance and repair instructions, automated factory layout planning. And so it's all this pushing towards this paradigm that we call context-aware production planning. It's the whole thing we're pushing for. It's context-aware production planning. Engineering and production and sustainment should not be three different worlds. They should have one single source of truth. And that's what we're pushing for. So for us, we started the work instruction, and we're going to expand out into these other domains and automate as much of those processes with as much context as possible. I would say we are trying to build, if engineering teams and manufacturing teams generally, if you were trying to use building a vehicle for them as an analog, right? For an engineering team, I would say I would build them like a dune buggy, right? They can go off-roading in it. They could be really creative and flexible and innovative and sort of can go off the rails wherever they want. And that's for an engineering team. But for a manufacturing team, for a manufacturing facility, you don't want that. A manufacturing facility has to be extremely repeatable, consistent. You want to go from point A to point B as fast, repeatably, and consistently as humanly possible. And so for them, I would build a high-speed rail system. So that is what we're building. We're trying to build the high-speed rail for the modern American manufacturer. And so for us, it's just it's adding more stops to that train effectively.
Yep. Well, it is very cool stuff. To me, the things like Dirac has happening are they're essential pieces of reshoring. It's not going to happen without this kind of technological advancing of how we do things.
Right on. We don't want cheap labor. We want smart labor.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Upskilling everybody.
Exactly. Everybody wins.
Good deal. Well, before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
Well, like I said, we are hiring aggressively. We are here in New York in the Empire State Building. Join us.
I will attest to their phenomenal view. I saw it virtually just the other day, and it is something.
Yep, that's you can see it over my shoulder over there.
I can see it there.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, good deal. Philip, thank you so much for being on Manufacturing Talks today.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Jim. This was a blast.
Yeah, I look forward to following what you guys are doing and seeing how it goes from here. I think you got some pretty bright things in your future.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. Well,
cool.
Thanks a ton, Jim.
Yep. And thanks to you in the audience. As always, you're why we're here. And, we're here every Tuesday, so tune in for the next show. Who do we have next? I think we've got a couple of ladies who are, they're running the Heavy Metal Summer Experience, which is going back to the Workforce Challenge. It's a hands-on introduction of high school and recently graduated youth to the building trades and how those work. So grew from 13 in their first go around to over 500 kids today. Really cool story. They'll be here next Tuesday. So tune in for that. In the meantime, Jim Vinosky, Manufacturing Talks, signing off. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.